We are down to 2 teams in the world of college football, gentlemen. The college football playoff national championship takes place next Monday, 7:30 Eastern time from on ESPN and all the other ESPN networks and all the those games last night were on like 14 ESPN channels with all sorts of alternate commentary and God, I don't even understand it sometimes. But anyway, on the ESPN family of networks from Energy Stadium in Houston,
family.
Yeah,
there you go.
ESPN
family.
But it is number 1 Michigan, 14-0.
I think the channels was for the FSU Criers Club, Jim, if I remember.
Dang, I didn't go there, but I don't.
Before we put this game though, Jim, can I get a breaking news sounder? Because it impacts this game actually.
Oh, we got some breaking news, huh?
Huskies running back Dylan Johnson will be suiting up in that game.
Will be?
Yeah. He got hurt late, so
yeah, he did. I mean, I'm sure he's going to be dinged up with the foot or ankle or whatever it was. So, but cool. Yeah, good to hear. That was definitely.
I thought the breaking news was that EJ's still crying about FSU.
Devin's upset. He says his ugly is how bad the Miami Dolphins played. His bad and ugly. Yeah,
I mean,
not good. Honestly, Devin, the worst in that is the fact that your idiot coach had the starters still in.
Yes,
with 3 minutes to go, and Bradley Chubb is now out for the season.
Yep,
down 30 minutes to or 3 minutes to go. There's no reason for any of those starters to be in that game.
You're supposed to put in the backup so they'll be down by 50. I mean, I know your response is going to be, does it matter? But I'm just asking.
Lose by 60, lose by 100. That game's already lost.
I remember I was saying that game felt like more about the Ravens, how good they are at this point, because they've beaten really good teams.
Yeah.
No, but listen to me. They've beaten the Lions by not as bad as that, but by 30 plus points. They've beaten other good teams by this kind of margins.
But the Ravens are out to make a point.
All I'm saying is not one person has used the 3 letters at all in the first hour of the show, and that is MVP. We know who that motherfucker is.
It's over. It ended.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, he'd have to throw the ball backwards.
I see what you did there, Matt. You some bitch.
My boy Demetrius.
All right.
Boy
Demetrius. Like I said, this Monday, January the 8th, number 1 Michigan, 14-0. They are a 4.5-point opening favorites against number 2 Washington, also 14-0. 55.5 is your over under on this one. Before we get to predictions for this game, we didn't touch a whole lot, guys. Any thoughts from the games last night that impact what you think is going to happen next Monday? EJ, I'll start with you.
No, not really. I picked both these teams to win, and nothing surprised me at all with the results. Honestly, the takeaways for me was coming out of this was like Alabama really overachieving this year, given what they were in the year. That to me, at the end, they overachieved. I mean, no one had beaten Georgia in the title game. I mean, first off, the fact that we're here, honestly, given how things played out this year, surprise.
Literally, the game could not have been any closer. With the number 1 team in the country almost lost, and you're going to overachieved. That's horrible.
That's a credit to Alabama and Nick Saban.
I think to his point is when you because the debate that was happening after conference champion Saturday night to when the rankings were revealed, and even going into conference championship weekend, the belief was like, there's no way Alabama's going to beat Georgia because Georgia's the better team. Alabama's underachieved all year. And then, okay, so they beat Georgia, but then even leading up to this, it's like, well, did they, was the Georgia game kind of a fluke? So, and there was a lot of people that were kind of picking Michigan. I mean, and probably rightly so. They were the better team.
I picked Michigan myself. I get it.
But I think I kind of see EJ's point of Alabama overachieving. And I understand that it was a close spread on the game, but everybody brought up the South Florida score, and everybody brought up the fact that it came down to a miracle 4th down play against a shitty Auburn team.
We're doing this
rivalries and blah 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 and all that, but I think there is a decent
to me.
Point
it's a point to Alabama winning us.
Maybe they underachieved early because they couldn't figure out the quarterback position, guys. Why are we just going to sit here and act like that the quarterback situation in Alabama was effing terrible? And listen, I told you exactly last week how Michigan would win, and that's exactly how the fuck they won. But nobody in the cards had A, Michigan making special teams mistakes to keep Alabama in it, and B, the center missing more snaps than something that misses a lot of snaps. Okay, I'm 0 for 2 for good analogies here, but the punchline is this.
Do better.
I sure listen. You finally correctly used it, Jim. Good for you. I would call you a bitch, but you did it right. So here's the but here's the thing. I don't get how you can call it overachievement where just the last game they played, they took out the top team in the country and were literally one play away from doing the same fucking thing.
I'm looking at the
crazy.
Well, I'm looking at more as the totality, the season as a whole, as a totality.
Well, that's just absolutely asinine because they got better throughout the year, which is something your Knowles didn't do.
It's a credit to calm down the Knowles now. It's a credit to the to me it's a credit to Alabama more than anything else. That everything that happened this year, they still found their way into the playoff.
Which means they underachieved early more than they overachieved. EJ?
You can say that, of course, but I mean, the way the season went.
Bitch, I did say it.
It doesn't mean you're right in that the point of them overachieving towards the end is wrong.
Well, I mean, how are you defining overachievement? Or maybe you just had the standard incorrect because you felt like hating on the SEC because you're a Knoll homer.
No, or analyzing looking at the fact that Alabama wasn't what they've always been.
Okay, SEC, who does that? I don't do that.
This was you. I don't think you can deny that this was a quote unquote down year for Alabama. And I know that sounds crazy, given that they made it to the college football playoff. But like this was probably Nick Saban's best coaching job.
I totally agree with you on that
team
one.
That they had.
Absolutely.
Name me one person on this panel that had Alabama winning the conference. I'll help you. It didn't happen. So how can it?
What are we arguing about?
No. How
can it mean that they're overachieving?
What?
Doesn't that mean that they're overachieving? If nobody had them winning the conference, looking at this roster, we're talking about how great of a job that Nick Saban did as a head coach. He got more out of that team than expected. Is that not the definition of overachieving?
The question I was about to ask, actually, Jim, of the Knoller is what is he calling overachieving? Because when I hear overachieving, it's an implication that they didn't belong where they were. And I don't know how much more Alabama could have done to prove that point that they did, other than winning the game, of course.
See, so for me, and I'll let EJ answer the question as well, but for me, I look at the fact that, like, beginning of the season, midway of the season, hell, probably the beginning of November, I wouldn't have put Alabama into the Final Four. So the fact that Nick Saban got this out of his team,
almost won.
And almost won.
Point I just made. Thank you, EJ.
Because in the couple of weeks leading up to this game, I didn't think it was going to come down to an overtime.
So overachievement isn't necessarily an indictment.
Correct.
Do you remember? Right.
Mistake. I'll drop that.
Do you remember, Kyle, on this show back in September after losing Texas we did a segment on the show? Have we seen the last Alabama being this Alabama? We did a whole segment on that.
Okay, and I'm sure
clearly you're all wrong on that one
because I wouldn't have knee-jerked like other.
We kept saying it felt different, and even when they beat South Florida, it was 17-3, but that game was a lot tighter than supposed to be. It felt different. These wins feel different. They don't feel dominant, but they stayed the course. They've corrected the quarterback issue, the whole nine, and
one else is finally catching up. That's a thing,
right? That's what I'm saying. It's a credit to Nick Saban, like especially in a year too where you had the competition on top this year, where there were 3 unbeaten teams going into the final weekend, and they still find their way in, beating Georgia, especially too. That's 4 teams unbeaten.
I love the subtle point that Jim is making that no one's going to catch on the podcast that he flipped to the graphic.
What is that?
Washington and Michigan.
Yeah.
While we're talking about everyone catching up to the league, that's what a good producer does, Jim Neese.
I am good at what I do, Kyle.
Just when I want to call you a bitch, you got to come in here and do some hashtag talent shit, and I'm here for it.
Anti-bitch thing.
You're a little bitch.
Yeah. Kyle, I'll go the same question to you. Is there anything from last night's games that change or impact how you feel next Monday is going to go?
The real quick thing I'll say is actually for all the caping up I just did for Alabama, I feel good about Michigan because they've played tight in the playoffs lately, and they did the same this past week with the special teams errors. Good God, I can't imagine. I can't imagine the state you were in, Jim.
When you realize that final muffed punt at the end of regulation, the
final muffed punt says so much, but continue.
Right. They were literally a yard and a half from losing that game.
Yes.
Literally a yard and a half from losing that game is insane.
Is just, and it's also,
let's be fair, a yard and a half in two different times.
Yes.
Muffed punt and the final play of the game.
Yes. And by the way,
game of inches, they don't say it for no reason, folks.
It's not just a clever phrase. I agree, Jim. By the way, in defense of your good of our friend and hamburger vendor Jim Harbaugh, I love that he took it to overtime and didn't go for two there. Had Saban tied that game up, I feel like the move for him would have been to go for two and win it right there.
I was thinking it. I didn't have the guts to verbalize it because I didn't even want to verbalize it within these walls of if Alabama scored. But I do think that and I didn't see the post game. I don't know if anybody asked him the question. I don't know if he would have answered the question if they did. But I'm with you, man. I feel like if Alabama scored that touchdown, I think they were going for two because Michigan in their final drive and then in overtime, they were doing the thing that Michigan has done to Ohio State the last couple of years. And that's at some point they flipped that switch and they were the more physical team. And I think Alabama knew that they were probably in a bad spot. And probably would have went for two, and you either win it or you lose it, but you do it there. But yeah, I think Joel Klatt said it today on his podcast that he was shocked in the moment that Michigan didn't do it, and then was like, why would he have gone for two there? That would have been silly.
Especially when the other team's center all friggin' night is having issues with snapping the ball.
Yeah, it's
you know,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100% on that. But I say all that to say, I feel like this means to me that Michigan can't do it any worse on special teams than they did.
I hope so, right?
And they're going to look even better for the coming game. And I got to tell you, it's just the fact that Michigan won exactly like I said they would by flipping the script from the 2019 Citrus Bowl that I talked about. Just makes me more confident in Michigan. Not that this impacts my pick. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to the picks here in a minute. Matt, same question to you. Anything from last night that changes how you feel what's going to happen on Monday?
Not necessarily. I think that I was expecting more defense in the Michigan-Alabama game. I was expecting more offense in the Washington-Texas game, and that's kind of what we saw. So I think it'll be just kind of a what breaks first. Is Washington's offense kind of continue dominance like they've done against some teams, or does Michigan's defense stand up to them? Because I don't know that Michigan necessarily has the offense to keep up in a shootout as much as they would if they can shut down Penix a couple drives.
Yeah, I think and I don't think it's really anything that I saw from last night because I think it's who the teams are. I think Washington is the most dynamic offense that Michigan's going to see all year. And I think Michigan is the best defense that Washington is going to see all year. Watching
country at their particular jobs, Jim.
Yeah. And Michigan did a tremendous job in the first half. Alabama, credit to them for making some adjustments in the second half. Obviously in the closing drive and in overtime, Michigan was able to reestablish their dominance at the line of scrimmage. But that first half, and Nick Saban even said it in the post game that Michigan took away their big plays and their deep threats. Like one of the things that Alabama in that SEC title game was able to exploit on Georgia, they didn't really get the opportunity to. They did a couple of drives in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, Michigan was able to disrupt the line of scrimmage enough to keep them from doing that. And obviously for Washington, there was a point where I think Penix had 6 completions for 190 yards. So like that's going to be the battle. Like that I don't think there's any mystery to say that and I don't think we're surprising anyone when we say, is it going to be Michigan's offense, or is it going to be Washington, Michigan's defense or Washington's offense is going to be the better one? I think one of the keys, and it's kind of been the thing that I've said about big games for Michigan since probably the start of the 2021 season, is, against Ohio State in these playoff matchups, that if they can control the clock and do the things that they do on offense, which is just grind and, basically out physical their opponent and wear them out, I think that's going to play into Michigan's hand. Yeah, to Matt's point, I agree. If you start to get into that shootout mentality, I think you're going to be in some trouble there. Michigan has guys that can make plays. Don't get me wrong. There are some guys who can make plays, but you don't want to go into next Monday going, we're going to win a shootout with Washington. I think that's a bad play, and I would be shocked if that's the mindset in Ann Arbor right now. But let's go to it again. 4.5 point favorite. That was the opening line. Michigan is the favorite. 55.5 is your over under on this one. EJ, I'll start with you. What do you think?
All right, I'm going to take a slight over. But I like Michigan win the game, but I'm going to watching the points. This is going on the field goal.
All right. Kyle, how about you?
That's the only scenario that you can pick Michigan to win and expect the over to win as well, EJ. And I think, listen, I know I'm stalling a bit here because, listen, let me show everybody on the video my credentials, my Aaron Evans original, me as an offensive lineman on the wall. Every fiber of my being tells me to pick Michigan because you win games in the fucking trenches. However, I said the same thing. The defense wins championships and Texas plays some, so they should win. And then they didn't. Now, granted, they came very close, taking advantage of the injury. Remind me the running back's name, EJ.
Dylan Johnson?
Thomas? No, that's not it.
Dylan Johnson? Yeah, Dylan Johnson. Yeah.
Dylan Johnson. Thank you. I knew Dylan Thomas was wrong. Dylan Johnson gave Texas an opportunity to try to come back and win the game, and they couldn't because Washington, get this, played a little defense, and the right team won. I would have hated to see this game decided because a kid got hurt.
Yeah.
But Matt makes the point of the explosive Washington offense overwhelming the Michigan crew 100%. I think if you're going to expect Michigan to win the football game, the safest bet is the over, and the hell with trying to get the betting line, right? I'm going to go against my instincts. I'm going to go against my bias, both of offensive line and trench warfare and toward Jim Harbaugh. I'm going to go with Michael Penix. I'm going to go with Washington. 55 isn't enough. I'm implying at some point that defense tires because they're able to do enough to keep them on the field too long. I'm going to take the over because 55 is not a lot of points.
All right, Matt.
Well, as a Notre Dame fan, I can't and won't pick Michigan, so give me Washington. And I will take
like a shot. I felt like
the
a
over.
Shot. I felt like a shot.
How can it be, Marge? You're a Notre Dame homer. How can
Marge?
Are you?
Yeah, I mean,
what are we doing here?
I mean, obviously, there is no chance in hell, on earth, in heaven, or anywhere in between that I am picking against the Michigan Wolverines to win this game. Like I said, in a world where I have seen my wife happier than our wedding day 4 times. 3 of them came on Saturdays after Thanksgiving, and 1 of them was yesterday. So hopefully we go for the 5th this coming Monday. I'm obviously, like I said, picking the Michigan Wolverines. I think I'm to do that. I think the smart play is the under, because I think if Michigan is going to win this game, I think it's going to be similar to what we saw yesterday. Washington's going to score. Like there's no way that you are going to completely shut this team down. Now, you're inside, so there's not going to be an issue of weather. But we have seen a few times this year where you can disrupt and stop this Washington offense. And like I said, Michigan, the best defense that team has played. So I hope that what Michigan has done all year will continue to play out. I think they get the win. I will also take Michigan in a slight cover of that 4.5. I hope it does not come down quite as close as last night did. We don't need that kind of stress in our house for sure.
By the way, Jim, my marital advice: buy a bottle of your wife's favorite bubbly, but make it something that you could keep in the fridge for an extended period of time. If her/your Marge wins and Michigan is the national champion, you're ready. And if they don't, you can save that bitch for Valentine's Day. Boom. Welcome.
You're a smart man, Kyle. You're a smart man. They don't call you the student of the game for nothing. Devin has Michigan, and he says definitely over. So that's an interesting thought there to take Michigan in the over.
Yeah.
Look, like I said in our group chat last night with Mikey B, I don't care about lines. I don't care about overs. I don't care about any of that ish, as long as the Maize and Blue win on Monday. That is the only thing that matters in this house come Monday. So one college football game left, and then we close the book.
I will say, though, the gambling wise, though, the better bet is probably taking the over. I stay away from the spread, though, altogether.
Yeah. Because I mean,
you're guaranteeing Washington wins if you pick the over. To me,
I don't think necessarily you're guaranteeing. I mean, Michigan can score points.
Guarantee is strong. You're right, but
yeah, Michigan can score points. Because I mean, 56 points. That's what 20, 28, 27. I mean, both teams could be under 30 and hit the over. So
barely. And do you expect it to be a 1-point game? I don't.
Dear God, I hope not, Kyle. And I certainly hope not. We hope that in this house, but one final game. Next week we'll look back at we'll look back at our preseason predictions to find out just how wrong we all were about a lot of things.
Some of us picked Michigan to win it, I believe.
I honestly don't remember. I know I picked the Heisman Trophy, correct? I guess I can't get rid of my family after all.
That's some bullshit. That was you know that though. Come on now. In your hearts believe I got that one right.
It absolutely should have been Penix. I'm still not totally sure why. But nonetheless.
Who in the family picked the right one, Jim? You know it in your heart.
Family.